This ship and its crew have been held by Somali pirates for nearly 1,000 days. One crew member has committed suicide by jumping overboard, and no one knows what condition the remaining 22 sailors are in. In desperation, the Somali government turned to South African mercenaries. Drastic action was needed.
I think we got dealing with professional soldiers and all ethical, but where the brutality comes in is the efficiency of the unit.
Working with the police, the mercenaries have a simple plan: attack the pirates and rescue the surviving hostages.
They must fire on the ship! They must fire on the ship with the Duska!
With exclusive footage taken by the mercenaries themselves, this is the incredible story of how the world's longest hijack was brought to a dramatic and violent end.
I'm speaking to my family. I am not dead, and I know by the grace of God I will not die.
It's the 10th of December 2012, and the Iceberg 1 is out of fuel and run aground since September 2011. The Somali pirates, who hijacked the ship almost 3 years before, are demanding an $8 million ransom, but no one is willing to pay. The owners of the ship, Azal Shipping, based in the United Arab Emirates, immediately disowned it, leaving the ship and crew to the mercy of the pirates. With no end in sight, a group of South African ex-special forces have been hired to lead the Somali police in an assault on the ship. The police have never taken part in such an operation before, and with the remaining 22 crew members possibly still alive, the risks are massive. Launched in the late 70s, the Iceberg 1 is a Panamanian-flagged container ship owned by Azal Shipping in Dubai. It was carrying a cargo of mechanical equipment from Yemen to Jebel Ali in the United Arab Emirates, a routine job for her 24-member crew, consisting of nationals from Yemen, India, Ghana, Sudan, Pakistan, and the Philippines. On March the 29th, 2010, less than a week into her voyage, she entered the Gulf of Aden.
The Gulf of Aden was the main route that ships took, either going into or coming out of the entrance to the Red Sea, which then led on to the Suez Canal. In any 1 year, there will be in excess of 20,000 ships passing through the Gulf of Aden.
Only 10 nautical miles away from the port of Aden, she was hijacked by Somali pirates. Using small fiberglass skiffs launched from a mothership, they quickly approached the Iceberg 1, attacking it with bullets and rocket-propelled grenades for 30 minutes before storming on board. Unarmed, the crew was powerless to fight back. They only just had time to make desperate phone calls home. In footage shot by the pirates themselves, the crew, led by 72-year-old Captain Ali Saleh from Yemen, are petrified. This is the nightmare facing any crew sailing close to the Gulf of Aden.
It's pretty simple stuff. They've got enough equipment and weapons that they can sufficiently frighten an unarmed ship, and the guy's got no choice. They're not soldiers, they're not kitted out to fight. Skipper has to surrender, guys come on board, and then they start the ransom procedure.
Since the start of the Somalian Civil War in 1991, the country has been lawless and directionless, with 19 different governments attempting to assert control. In 1993, the United States tried to intervene, but the incident, that would later become known as Black Hawk Down, saw 18 US soldiers killed, 73 injured, and effectively ended any further appetite for intervention. The anarchy and gang violence which followed created the ideal breeding ground for piracy.
The fact that Somalia has been a lawless land for the past 30 or so years means that the pirates can operate with almost impunity off their own coast.
Piracy is a symptom. The problem is the lack of effective government, the lack of effective rule of law in Somalia itself.
Some of the executive outcomes guys were up in Somalia, 93, 94, And these people were sitting around saying, well, you know, we're being illegally fished, and there are all these foreign boats out there. So the guy said, oh, no, well, this is simple. What you do is you go out there and arrest the boats, and then you kind of ransom them back to their owners because they were illegally fishing. And the Somalis said, oh, that's a really good idea. We're going to try that. They started an industry. They started two industries because we have the pirate industry and we have the counter-pirate industry.
Natural disasters, illegal fishing and dumping drove more and more Somalis to piracy.
The concept evolved, and they decided that they could take bigger ships, holding the crew for ransom, and then negotiating good ransoms became the way that Somali piracy worked.
It's an extremely effective business model. It's organised crime in an area where it's difficult to deal with organised crime.
Over 5 years, piracy increased rapidly. In 2005, just 3 ships were taken. In 2010, there were 117. And this is one of the busiest shipping routes in the world.
We have to ensure that those who commit acts of piracy are held accountable.
In an effort to protect commercial vessels from pirate attack, the United Nations organised military vessels from its member states to begin special anti-piracy patrols. But this was not enough.
You have 5 million square kilometres of ocean. It's an enormous area. The naval coalition forces have somewhere between 12 to 15 warships at sea. And it's like trying to police the whole of Europe with 12 police cars limited to 16 miles per hour.
Okay, let's go. Go ahead, warning shot.
Unable to rely on protection from UN naval forces, the shipping companies decided to fight back themselves. Private maritime security companies were quickly established, employing teams of mercenaries to defend vessels from the pirates.
Second skip.
The pirates are maybe 5 or 6 men in something that's not much more than a motorboat, and they do not want to take on full trained people with the right equipment. They really don't. Now that costs, let's say, $30,000 to $40,000, which isn't really very much money to save a ship and a crew and all the rest of it.
Ordinary cargo vessels were now commonly equipped with extraordinary defences.
The reality is that as soon as proper armed teams went on board the ships, it stopped. It has stopped it. And I don't think there's a single instance of a ship being taken by the pirates who has a properly constituted armed team on board.
Fewer and fewer ships dared run the gauntlet of the Gulf of Aden without adding such deterrence. But Azal Shipping, the owners of Iceberg 1, had added nothing to protect their ship and crew. After 2 months, food supplies had run out, and the hostages' pleas for help from their employers or their government were ignored. No one was willing to help. As this footage shows, it was the crew that suffered.
They keep us in this room. In this room, not more than 5 meters, 23 people stay there. You see a Somali bar, see how they treat us here. Like animals. This is not like human being. This is like animals. Always they are shooting the guns. If the one man go to toilet and he late about 3 minutes, they are start shooting gun. To make the crew is too much scared. So no good food, no good, we only using seawater. They give us about 3 liters, we drink it for 3 days.
The Iceberg was moved within 12 miles of Somalia's coast, outside the jurisdiction of international law. This was a ready-made holding pen for pirated vessels, a zone safe from interference and close enough to shore for the pirates to receive supplies and changes of personnel from their allies on land. On the 1st of November, day 218 of their ordeal, and with no ransom payment forthcoming, the traumatized crew were permitted to send messages to the outside world.
I'm speaking to my family that I am still alive. I am not dead, and I know by the grace of God I will not die.
Please, kindly, with due respect and with human, we are grieving, please.
We are appealing to the international community, to the UN, to come to our aid, because we are really suffering here.
just find someone, form a committee to negotiate with this pirate so that we can gain our freedom.
On the 29th of March 2010, the Iceberg 1 cargo vessel was captured in the Gulf of Aden. Over 7 months later, the crew was confined to a small cabin with scant food supplies and water taken from the sea or the air conditioning system. And there was no chance that the ransom demand of $8 million would be paid. Azal Shipping, the vessel's owners, had abandoned their men, even going so far as denying they owned the ship. The situation for Ali Mohammed Khan, the ship's chief engineer, and his colleagues seemed hopeless.
The ownership of this vessel has neglected everything. He has neglected the crew, the vessel, and everything. With no owners and nobody to look after us, what will be our situation?
The pirates were violent, the ship in disrepair, and the crew mourning the suicide of their third officer, Waji Akram. What the hostages didn't know is that the solution to their plight was at that moment being put into place in the most unlikely of locations, Somalia itself. The Puntland region to the north of the country has its own government and security forces, and its president, Abdirahman Mohamed Farol, had begun to rebuild the military from scratch. For training and support, they turned to South African mercenaries, including helicopter pilot Arthur Walker. Arthur, a veteran of the South African military, fought as a mercenary for over 20 years in civil wars such as Angola and Sierra Leone. But the Puntland government knew they could not recruit mercenaries, so instead, they brought in an official private military company.
I was invited in February 2011 by a new group that I hadn't heard of, a company called Saracen International.
Saracen had a shady past, with links to the original Soldier of Fortune outfit, Executive Outcomes, and more recently, the American mercenary kingpin Eric Prince, the founder of the biggest private security company in the world, the infamous Blackwater.
I think when you talk about the organizations that I've been involved in, everybody has been specially selected for their skills and for their experience and the motivation to want to go and operate in these countries. I think we consider ourselves completely different to a United Nations force that just gets sent into an area, and the soldiers are not really motivated to be there for so long.
And in African countries affected by civil war, there was continuous demand for their services.
Having a force with the right equipment, a specialized force, all these problems could be resolved very quickly by bringing in a private military army, and very cost-effective.
Somali piracy had now become such an epidemic that Puntland had set up a world first, a dedicated anti-piracy police, the Puntland Maritime Police Force, or PMPF.
I was recruited to go there. When I landed there, we started building the Puntland Maritime Police Force.
Sam Kaunda was part of the first contingent of mercenaries to fly to Puntland.
We were in Bosaso, 5 kilos from Bosaso, that we built our Puntland Maritime Police Force base. It took us a while, though. It took us 6 months to complete the whole wall and get set up and put in all the trucks.
With the base completed, a shipment of trucks, containers and military equipment arrived, donated by the United Arab Emirates, a visible sign to the local population that the PMPF had the support of international governments. Although these supplies would be essential, it was the Somali recruits themselves that the operation hinged on.
They were so slim, you know, it's hard because they were slim. You can see these people, if we train them like the way I would train, you kill them. But we use our skills, though, to take care of them and use our skills and train them slowly but sure, feeding them nice to become strong, and we start training them. By the time we left, they were professional.
This was a serious and concentrated effort by Somalia to combat the humiliating hijackings taking place along its shoreline. Hijacking had even spread beyond cargo vessels or oil tankers. In 2010, a Danish family, the Johanssons, were sailing around the world in a 40-foot yacht when they were attacked by pirates in the Indian Ocean. It was held for 7 months before being released for $1 million. The Johanssons were the victims of an influential pirate warlord by the name of Issi Ulux. Ulux had a well-armed militia of over 70 men and was one of the most well-known pirate leaders operating in Somalia. The PMPF knew that Ulux would be a significant scalp. They had information telling them he and his men were camped in the town of Bali Didin, deep within the Horn of Africa. With the few roads being too dangerous to consider in pirate country, they turned to Arthur Walker to fly over the town. With him, fellow South African mercenary Rolf van Heeden. Van Heeden served in the secretive Civil Cooperation Bureau, a state-sponsored assassination squad during South Africa's apartheid era. After the handover of power to the ANC, he found freelance work during the civil wars in Angola and Sierra Leone with the notorious executive outcomes, before being recruited by Saracen International on behalf of the Puntland government.
He set up this whole Puntland police operation and controlled it from the top, quietly, discreetly, very effectively, disciplined, and got the results he was looking for.
Their mission was to locate and destroy some armed jeeps owned by Issy Ulux. Late in the afternoon, they approached from the south. Unable to identify the compound, they swung around and approached again from the north. It's then they started to take fire from the ground. Gunner Andrew immediately returned fire. Andrew pointed out the source of the fire to Ralph, wanting the helicopter to turn. It's now they located the trucks.
A private military company, particularly the ones that I've been involved in, there's none of this gung-ho, brutal, it doesn't happen. I think we got dealing with professional soldiers and all ethical, but where the brutality comes in is the efficiency of the unit. That when the target has been identified, the planning is done, the logistics is completed, briefing's done, training done, and they strike hard. Using the air power that we've got is deadly in these circumstances in Africa.
Some reports state that one pirate was killed during this mission. Another states that 6 pirates, as well as civilians, were left dead. For Arthur, Ralph and the Saracen team, it was mission accomplished. And having proved themselves, they could now be entrusted with something bigger and better, the retaking of Iceberg 1. It's late 2012. The crew of the Iceberg 1 has now been held captive together for over 2.5 years. Arthur's first job is to take a recce flight over the ship to look for signs of life. Only one pirate is photographed. The crew, if they are still alive, are kept out of sight. It's now that Arthur is briefed on their ordeal.
The pirates were told that there was gold and diamonds on board the ship, and that was their motivation to go and hijack it. During this period of 3 years, the pirates had cut open any cupboard, containers, they'd cut open everything on that board that ship, looking for the gold and diamonds. And they were torturing the sailors, and particularly the chief engineer, so that he could tell them where the stuff was hidden.
But there was no gold or diamonds. No matter how brutal their treatment and conditions, the crew couldn't give the pirates what they didn't have. Something drastic needed to be done. On the coast of Somalia, South African mercenaries have joined forces with the Puntland Maritime Police Force to free hostages held captive for 33 months on board the Iceberg 1. They are preparing to attack with the same fiberglass skiffs the pirates used. This is the first time a pirated vessel would be attacked by skiff. They are learning on the job. They will soon discover that these craft are precarious, difficult to control, and don't take well to rough conditions. For the first sea-based operation the PMPF are to undertake, this is uncharted territory, and no one can predict the outcome. The PMPF's blue vehicles are conspicuous in a country where many have sympathy for the pirates and share in the profit from their actions. Arthur's helicopter is a further sign that a rescue attempt is imminent. But the real risks lie with the Somali men who have chosen to join up and fight their pirate countrymen.
The whole operation was conducted by the Somalis, with a couple of expats advising. Rolf, who commanded the ground forces, Alex from Russia, then our medic, Brandon, was South African, and the rest were Somalis.
It's 5:30 a.m, and within sight of the Iceberg 1, the men of the PMPF now have to put all they have learnt into practice.
The pirates on board the Iceberg were holed up in the bridge, and we weren't sure of where the hostages were being kept.
Or whether they are even on board at all.
So the skiff is still here. What we will do is we will start firing some shots and maybe see whether there might be a reaction from the pirates or from somebody from the ship. Maybe they don't know about us. It's still early in the morning.
Rolf van Heeden, commander of the operation, takes us through their intentions on the first morning.
It's still early in the morning. It's prior to 6, still not 8 hours yet, but our troops are in position. Are both skiffs there?
Yes.
Both skiffs. Okay.
With us, we had 3 Dushka, which is your 12.7 caliber, mounted on the back of the Land Cruiser vehicles. And we also had the light machine gun, the PKM, which is a 7.62.
If they're going to maintain the element of surprise, they need to act fast.
I think we must fire a RPG. Airburst, just airburst.
As one young PMPF unwraps a rocket-propelled grenade, the troops are in for a nasty surprise. The pirates are awake and waiting. The tracer fire lights up the morning sky. The bullets strike the shore centimetres from the troops' legs, sending them scattering. The South African commander knows exactly what they must do.
They must fire on the ship. They must fire on the ship with the Dushka. Hey, fire on Dushka on the ship.
The Dushka machine gun has jammed. Suddenly, the PMPF's lack of experience and training has them all badly exposed. The mission has quickly become much more difficult and dangerous.
Initially, the pirates fired at us. They started the fight with us. We were just there to go and assess the situation, and our task was to rescue hostages. And on the first morning, the pirates actually fired at our group, mainly with a PKM and deadly accurate fire, where they damaged quite a few of our vehicles over a distance of about 700 meters. And obviously, we had to retaliate.
We are making a plan now how to approach this ship from various sides, supporters from the land, supporters from the air, and coming from the sea with one boat, which will put 20 men on top of the boat. And then from there, we will start clearing the resistance that there is. There shouldn't be many of them, but this is what we are expecting to do.
With incoming fire, the troops need air support. And this is where Arthur Walker is in his element. He takes a recce flight in an old Alouette helicopter over the ship and decides to remind the pirates that entering into a firefight is to play a dangerous game.
Oh, it's just an absolutely enormous difference. Anyone trying to do anything, I think, on foot becomes dreadfully aware of their vulnerability the moment they know there's something up there, even if, actually, that aircraft can't see them and can't, in fact, interdict them. It's a sort of it's a psychological thing as much as anything else. So it's a massive multiplier.
Returning to the coast, these photos show the amount of ammunition fired on the Iceberg, and the South Africans are happy.
Yeah, it's a tough day. Things were not 100% correct, but still, the heart was there, the drive was there, and I think it went extremely well.
The pirates' fire is so accurate the troops have moved their base to higher ground, out of sight and out of range.
So we came to this high ground, and it's actually just a few dunes. So we unloaded, and troops are resting, cleaning weapons, and the troops are tired. Look at this guy, he's sleeping.
The PMPF and South Africans have to reassess what they hoped would be a far simpler mission. As a mark of how they underestimated the pirates, they are also low on ammunition.
And we are running out of ammunition. We will be sending the helicopter to Ireland, see if they can do some replenishment.
Arthur takes to the air to collect more hardware from the nearby town of Eel. Within 2 hours, he is back with more PKM machine guns, bullets, and a new barrel for the jammed and melted Dushka. With dusk drawing in, they must wait until the next morning before they can attempt anything. They still have no idea how much firepower the pirates have left. But it wasn't fire from the pirates on board the ship they should have been concerned about.
Okay, yeah, the situation is that it's under control at the moment.
Earlier that morning, a group of 7 pirates from the nearby town of Garissad attacked the troops as they slept. 3 of the pirates were killed, 1 escaped, but 3 were captured. As the 3 men are stripped and led to a police van, the South African mercenaries speak to them before they are driven away.
What's your name? Abakim. Say again? Abakim. Abakim. What's your name? Oh, yeah, and you? Said. You're playing a dangerous game. You must be fortunate. You're alive. Huh?
With plenty of weaponry, the PMPF decide to launch an all-out assault on the Iceberg 1. With the hostages still on board, they open fire with everything they have, spraying the Iceberg with heavy machine gun fire. The pirates didn't fire back, but nor did they surrender. The tense stalemate continues. Late in the afternoon, and still without any response, Arthur Walker takes to the air to get a better look. But this does provoke a response, and the pirates opened fire. These photos show how lucky Arthur is to be alive. There are several bullet holes in the helicopter windows. One even hit the passenger seat. The troops and South Africans knew that waiting was no longer an option. Snipers were brought forward to try and take out some of the pirates.
They fired at us from inside the portholes, so you could never actually see any of the pirates themselves, but the fire was coming out from... So the only thing we could do was fire back into the portholes.
But it's the pirates who draw first blood.
Are they firing back at us?
From their well-concealed positions and from a distance of 700 meters, they managed to shoot 3 PMPF, all of whom survived. For many of them, this is their first taste of real combat.
Was this type of operation ever done before in Somalia, in Africa? No. This is the first time. This type of operation is never easy.
Arthur flies the casualties back to Eel. Everyone is frustrated that progress has been so slow, and the stalemate looks set to continue. Then word from on board the ship gives the mercenaries and the PMPF all the clearance they need.
We had communication, cell phone communication, with the pirates, but via their sponsors or their investors. And the initial reaction was that they were going to fight to the death. They didn't care what happened to them, but they were going to fight to the death before they released any of these hostages. That was exactly the message, and that's why we were not too concerned about eventually bombarding them.
They launch an all-out assault from the beach and air, and the Iceberg is pelted with the full force of the troops' arsenal.
The intention was to put 5 to 10 of our soldiers to climb up on board and board the ship, but under fire or covering fire from the land and from the air. We had a single PKM machine gun on the Alouette.
It's very difficult, if you're on the ground, to try and counter a helicopter gunship firing at you. He's more mobile, he's got you in his sights, you're firing up at him. That's inaccurate, you're going to get hit, there's no question.
In what looked like a desperate move, the PMPF approached the ship on 3 skiffs. The pirates fire wildly, determined not to let the troops near them. Bullets land perilously close to the tiny unarmored boat. But the PMPF keep speeding forward. Once close to the hull, they are safe from the pirates' fire, but now face the challenge of getting on board. They had planned to do this using ladders they brought with them. From the beach, a South African mercenary has spotted movement on the deck, but that's not the only problem.
Is the ladder not long enough?
But the sea conditions were very rough, and initially we couldn't get the length of the ladder right to hook onto the railings.
Totally unaware that the ladder was too short, a second skiff makes the charge for the Iceberg's hull. But the rough waters cause one of the troops to be thrown overboard, exposed to enemy fire. All the troops on the beach can do is fire desperately at the portholes, trying to offer support. The first skiff prepares to make its escape, forcing the second skiff to do the same. Bullets continue to hit the water all around them. All 3 skiffs retreat, but not without loss. One of the PMPF troops has been hit and killed, the first fatality the PMPF have suffered. And they are still no closer to freeing the hostages. On the coast of Somalia, the newly established Puntland Maritime Police Force is doing battle with the pirate force on board the cargo ship Iceberg 1 in a bid to free the 22 hostages on board. To help them, they've called upon legendary helicopter pilot Arthur Walker and a team of South African mercenaries.
We found that the effectiveness, we weren't doing anything traumatic to the pirates. So we decided to bring in a heavier caliber missile.
The Soviet-built B-10 recoilless rifle is a weapon that can certainly penetrate the ship's steel. And although it has a range of over 4,000 meters, its effective accuracy is only 400. It was also missing its sights. Deciding to aim through the breach, the PMPF decided the Iceberg 1 was a big enough target.
Ultimately, they managed to find a B-10 rocket launcher, or recoilless rifle. That's about 100 millimeter caliber. And that managed to make a few holes, through the thick steel of the bridgehead.
At 7 foot long, this anti-tank weapon will have no problem penetrating a cargo ship. Photographs taken later show how one of the shells fired from the B-10 went straight through the thick steel walls of the ship. Finally, the pirates' resolve is broken. Terrified, some of them attempt to flee in their skiffs. But after taking fire from Arthur, one sinks and the pirates are forced back to the ship.
They hadn't received any supplies of fresh water and food, so they started, feeding the pinch. Also, they were used to getting their daily cut, which is a mild narcotic that they chew. So after 12 days, we basically starved them out, and eventually they decided to succumb. And we exchanged the first 2 hostages who were wounded or very badly in bad health. And we exchanged the first 2 for a bag of sugar and some tea. So we sent a boat in, and they lowered the 2 hostages down the ladder. And we took them back to the shore, back to safety, and then we immediately flew them back to our base where they got full medical treatment that night.
Welcome to freedom.
Thank you.
25-year-old Indian crew member Swapnil Japhad was shot right through his ankle during the attack. He is so relieved, or exhausted, that he doesn't seem to care.
Sorry, man.
Yes.
But we had to do this to get you free.
Yes.
It begins to become clear what conditions were like on board.
Water is, but they no give us.
No water.
What we collect from the rain.
This one bottle give 3 days.
3 days.
Arthur flies them away for medical attention. For them, it's the end of a terrifying ordeal. Leaving the coast, they pass the ship that has been their prison for nearly 1,000 days. The pirates know they can't compete with the 2 recoilless rifles, and they are now ready to surrender. Representatives of the pirates, elders and tribal leaders meet the PMPF on the beach to negotiate.
This is the crazy thing about the piracy in Somalia. The investors actually had communication with the pirates on board, plus the pirates that were in the area, in the nearest town there. And they in turn would phone our police commissioner. And so we had a full circle of communication directly with the pirates.
One of the negotiators is father to 2 of the pirates. He pleads with his sons and urges the rest of the pirates to release the remaining hostages. If they agree, they will be allowed to leave without coming under fire. Finally, the negotiations succeed. The pirates will be allowed to return home without being charged. But after holding the Iceberg 1 for almost 3 years, they will not receive any ransom. Their mission complete, the troops board the Iceberg 1 and get to see what conditions were like for the hostages.
The hostages were held for 3 years on board, basically in a very large cabin, but completely cramped. They had very limited food. A lot of them were tortured. The chief engineer was badly tortured. They cut off both his ears that were hanging loose down here. They beat him up with a metal pipe and damaged his left leg in particular.
The hostages, free at last, are overcome with emotion.
It was the most amazing thing that after 3 years of confinement, they looked generally in good condition, fair health, and it just goes to show that the mentality of these sailors and their self-discipline, how they managed to preserve themselves and keep themselves in the best condition that they did. Every single hostage, when they touched the ground, they started praying and thanking the Lord, whether they were Muslim or Christian. And it was just the most wonderful experience that all the time that we'd worked there and sweated, it was just so rewarding just to see the faces of those hostages that had been released after 3 years of torture. It made it all worthwhile.
It's now that the PMPF realised that these men were positioned by the pirates in the rooms on the outer perimeter of the ship as human shields.
On the 10th of December, early morning, I was about to pray, and all of a sudden there was a gunshot, and it was really brutal. And all of us were hiding for cover. The bullets were flying. There was so much bombardment. Bullets flying over, we were lying down all over. In fact, we spent 3 years, but the last 13 days was really a war. Initially, we don't know who were coming to save us. We thought they were coming to destroy all of us. And finally, on the 13th day, everything became calm.
This is the end of a brutal ordeal for these men. They were saved by a novice Somali force tackling a problem that has blighted their country for years. And they were guided by battle-hardened South African mercenaries whose actions defied their reputations.